So please, if you can, give this channel a chance by subscribing, and please give my other channels a chance as well by liking and subscribing there. So I'm usually stuck with the dilemma of giving a lot of context and background. This one, not so much because these issues are kind of separate a little bit. So the basic gist, of course, is Jonathan Majors was playing Kang in the MCU. He got himself into, put it mildly, a lot of legal trouble. That trial is over. He was convicted of a few things, but found innocent of other things, and there we are. But it appeared the MCU was going to just move on, and Robert Downey Jr. is set to play Doom, and we will probably see him in Fantastic Four, and he will have a movie onto himself, and that's going to be the sort of main big villain, at least in the immediate future. But now there's a rumor they may be bringing Jonathan Majors back as Kang, but only for a project to sort of close out the story. Because basically at this point, Kang is left dangling. They sort of kind of did something with What If, but obviously it's a little weird. And again, minor spoilers for Antman, Quanta, whatever. But basically at the end, we see that there are many, many, many Kangs, right? So we've got this whole army of Kangs. The obvious question is, what are we going to do with that? And they're kind of sidestepping the question for now. So they're thinking, okay, we'll bring you back just, I guess, for just one more movie, and we'll finish off the Kang story, and that will be it. He will go his way. The Marvel company and other people will go their way, and there you go. So, what to make of all this? I guess there are three stances, really. Whether you even care, because I just don't care about the MCU. They could do whatever they want. Never really liked it. I will catch some things. I will not catch other things. I really don't care. Okay, so that's one, total indifference, whatever they do. And then you have the people who are really against him coming back because of the conviction. And they say he's convicted of a crime. There should be no way of letting him back into the MCU. It's rewarding bad behavior. But of course, there's the third option, which is, well, whatever we think about him and his criminal record, and of course, we have the dilemma that Robert Downey Jr. also has a criminal record. So it can't be that he committed a crime. It's just that, well, there's no nice way of putting it. He's just not a big box office star, right? They had Quantumania. It just didn't make a whole lot of money. So even without this other stuff, whatever you think about him, the chances of doing more with Kang was always limited because it just didn't work, right? It wasn't getting this massive positive reception. Critical opinion was mixed. Obviously, Jonathan Majors is a star, so he has some fans, but the fan base for him is much smaller. The fan base for Robert Downey Jr. is massive, right? We can't deny the obvious that Robert Downey Jr. has a massive, massive following. So 2 plus 2 equals 4. You got to make money in Hollywood. Ergo, he would have never really come back for much anyway. So there it is. So what do I make of all this? Well, it's curious because I'm sort of mixed between all these people. For one thing, I never really liked the Jonathan Majors Kang for the obvious reason. And again, this is not to get racial. It's just that he doesn't fit the character. Right now, Kang is technically a multiverse character. Ergo, him being, well, we can't get around this, him being black isn't too difficult, right? This is a different version of Kang. It's an alternate timeline. So, yes, in the comics, he's white. And it's actually important because technically, Kang was Doctor Doom for a while, right? Kang was Doom and Doom was Kang, but they changed it to, okay, that's a little too confusing. Doom is a relative of Kang, right? He's a distant relative because Doom is from our time, right? The 20th, 21st century. Kang is in the far future, but they do have some kind of blood relative relationship. And of course, you can say, well, that's not too bad. If Doom is white and Kang is black in the future, that can still work because we got hundreds and hundreds of years, right? There could be many different couples, many different marriages, etc., etc. That's not really unbelievable. Nevertheless, I do think, to put it mild, the MCU has gone so far and radically changing everything. It gets into silly time. I mean, probably the worst example is Strange Multiverse of Madness, where we have canonically an Asian male character being turned into a Scottish woman. Whether you think it's racist or stupid or not, I thought it was racist and stupid. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So obviously you can't get picture perfect. I mean, even Tobey Maguire didn't exactly fit Spider-Man. Even there was like slight differences with the character, slight difference in appearances, but we should have a range here, right? Obviously, if you have Spider-Man being a Chinese woman from what, Chile, that's just not going to fit a guy who should be from New York and has to be a certain age and a certain ethnicity. You can't get around that. So you should obey a range here. And frankly, I just didn't find him very convincing. I thought he was really problematic in his first appearance with Loki season one. I just thought that was ridiculous. I didn't understand what the hell that was. And then we get to season two with Loki. That was pretty decent. That was interesting. But Ant-Man, a lot of people praised him, but I still was like, I'm not quite clear what this version of Kang is. So, due to the comic book canon, which I think we should, yes, you can be flexible, you can change some things, but don't totally disregard it. And they did, so I didn't like that. Beyond that, I thought his performances were all over the place. Loki season one was like not too good. Loki season two, pretty good, and then Ant Man is kind of like okay or barely okay. So there we go. So that's where I stand with the MCU performances. I just didn't think they were overall too strong. But nevertheless, Loki season two showed a lot of promise. So maybe the next film would have been incredible because he is a good actor. So there we go. So should we forgive and forget? Well, if you've noticed my own channel, I've had to deal with this with various other topics and various other creators, like how far can you go before you go too far. So on the record, I think several creators have gone too far, and we shall apply the same rule to these movie stars. So if you think this or that person should be canceled, why not be against Jonathan Majors? You don't even like him as an actor. Well, that's not true. I do think he's a decent actor. I just don't think he fit Kang. But let's be honest. I mean, the whole thing with him and Kang was kind of a very photo optic. It was a very celebrity choice. I mean, he's a good actor, but there are other good actors. Why pick him? So it always felt like a little dicey. So them bringing him back for one final project, if it is one final project, well, I think that's fine. But then the problem becomes you're still sort of rewarding him for bad behavior. Now you can sort of say, yes, but he's serving a sentence, apparently finished a program a while ago. He has been punished. He's served out his sentence. So what's the big issue? And I guess there's a deeper level if you really get into his controversy. It's not just that he committed a crime and he made bad choices. It's that if you look more into his background, he sort of had this very big megalomania. He had this kind of messiah complex. He compared himself to Obama, to Jesus. He really thinks he's this big black savior. So he does have these makings of a very, well, cult leader, and he had a cult following. It wasn't a big cult, but having studied cults, they do seem to have a very similar psychology. They think they're going to save the world or destroy the world. And he seemed to have that kind of type of mentality. How has he really grown from that? I don't know him personally, but looking at his both private and public behavior, because again, we know now some of what he did in privately, he does seem to be, well, not crazy with a capital C, but sort of crazy with a lowercase c. So I think the best thing would be that, no nice way of putting it, being a little brutal. Okay, fine, one final MCU project, but after that, again, you're not obligated to hire him. You're not obligated to go to his films, and he can still make a good living doing kind of smaller projects. And let's leave it there. And again, I'm not really saying this as an MCU fan because the MCU, I'm very mixed on what they do almost every project. So, but I do think some people were worried about the Kang story, and it's kind of frustrating that those fans are being left in the lurch just because something happened beyond the camera, and so it's frustrating for them. At the same time, I never really cared about the Kang story. I don't really care where it goes. I don't care about anything with Kang, really. Nevertheless, I did like Loki season two, and Loki is now left also in a really weird gap with the Kang story being mixed with it. So that's a little frustrating for me. So I guess as long as it's not, again, being brutal, as long as it's not too much money, it's not too big a role, and it is one final appearance, then it's like, all right, whatever. Just say goodbye to the man. But let's also be brutally honest. If he is allowed one more time, if that movie makes bazillions of dollars, it won't. I mean, it's not going to be Deadpool Wolverine. But let's say the short chance it does make bazillions of dollars, do you not think they're going to invite him back to do more? Of course, if he makes a lot of money, they're going to invite him back. So this is a lot on the audience. I'm not obligated to see this thing. It's way too early. This is just a rumor. If it does happen, and if it is, again, as a performer, if it is like a good role and a good story, then I will give it a chance. However, chances are it's going to be a bad story, a bad role. I'm probably not going to go see it. But I can't order you not to see it because I think it's just way too early. This is a rumor, but if this is true and if he is coming back, I will give it a chance, but I'm going to be extremely critical. But if others just want to forgive and forget, that's them. But I do think we should do due diligence. So my stance would be I'm open minded, but I'm very, very skeptical on many levels because the MCU has done very shady things, not just with Jonathan Majors. They've done shady things with many other actors and producers and directors. So for me, there's a very big question mark of what they're doing and what they're up to. And that's where I stand. Thank you for listening.